Please rise for the presentation of the colors.
Detail. Head, hut. Forward, arm. Detail, halt. Pose, collect. Present, hold. Order, hold. And face forward, up. Front row. Groin, freeze. Forward, on. Detail, halt. Line up, hang. Sink.
Please remain standing and join us in the singing of our national anthem. Gentlemen, please remove your caps.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance, which is found in your program. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated. Good morning. Thank you for joining us here today as we honor veterans past and present. In addition, thank you to Tony Morris and the University Choir for leading our national anthem, and the American Legion for presenting our colors today. My name is Billy Necker. I am a senior here at Upper Iowa, and I'm majoring in education. I am honored to be your MC today in celebration of this important day. Our welcome address is from Dr. William R. Duffy, the 21st president of Upper Iowa University. Dr. Duffy enlisted in the Army in 1974 and later graduated from the United States Military Academy at West Point. He served in numerous leadership positions ranging from a platoon leader to Deputy Joint Operations Officer for the United Nations mission in Haiti. Dr. Duffy retired as a lieutenant colonel after 20 years of service in the United States Army. Please help me welcome Dr. Duffy.
Thank you, Billy. And thank you all for joining us here today to remember and to honor our veterans and armed services personnel who have served our great nation. Originally proclaimed Armistice Day by President Woodrow Wilson in 1919 to honor the 116,000 Americans who died in World War I. The title Veterans Day was designed in 1954 to honor all Americans, all of those that have been veterans and who have served. Words inscribed on the Korean War Memorial in Washington, D.C. read the following: "Our nation honors her sons and daughters who answered the call to defend a country they never knew and a people they never met. These sons and daughters are men and women who we know, and most of them are ones we have never met, and all of them chose to serve and defend our great nation. I can say with great pride that Upper Iowa University and the citizens of Fayette are here today because you have not forgotten those who have served for us. For those who are not aware, here at Upper Iowa University, on May 20th, 1971, the internal Light for Peace was dedicated to Mr. Frank Jones. UIU referred to him as a man of many reasons, who was a veteran, who served in World War II in the Pacific. He was also a professor that greatly impacted our students during his tenure at Upper Iowa. Mr. Jones lit the Eternal Light for Peace, and it has been relocated from the west side of Garvey Hall to the reflective tribute Veterans Memorial north of the Alumni House. I encourage all of you to visit the memorial and to never forget the men and women who have served and made the ultimate sacrifice for our country and for us. I was also excited to hear one of our alums, Russ Newland, who actually took classes from this individual, from Mr. Jones. And so you knew him personally, so that was great to hear. At every Veterans Memorial ceremony, I share a poem written by Charles M. Province that hits home for me. The poem is titled, "It is a Soldier," and it reminds me that the freedoms we have today must be defended, and many have given their lives to ensure those freedoms. And the poem goes like this: "It is the soldier, not the minister, who has given us freedom of religion. It is the soldier, not the reporter, who has given us freedom of the press. It is the soldier, not the poet, who has given us freedom of speech. It is the soldier, not the campus organizer, who has given us freedom to protest. It is the soldier, not the lawyer, who has given us the right to a fair trial. It is the soldier, not the politician, who has given us the right to vote. It is the soldier who salutes the flag, who serves beneath the flag, and whose coffin is draped by the flag, who allows the protester to burn the flag. We salute all of our veterans who are currently serving our country. They are Americans' unsung heroes who sacrifice so very much, them and their families, and they are truly doing great things for America and the world. Who? Thank you all very much for being here.
Thank you, President Duffy. I now welcome our keynote speaker, Major Philip Turner. Major Philip Turner has served over 32 years as a member of the Army and the Army National Guard. With 3 deployments and service in 4 different divisions, he has served as a cavalry scout team leader, section sergeant, combat medic, ground evacuation squad leader, tank commander, rifle squad leader, platoon sergeant, rifle platoon leader, MP platoon leader, executive officer, operations officer, OCS TAC officer, and platoon trainer, and 57 months of company and field grade command. He commissioned as a graduate of Officer Candidate School in the Iowa National Guard in 2002 as an infantry officer after more than 14 years enlisted service. Since 2007, he served as a federal employee in such roles as OCS and WOCS course manager, supervisory human resources specialist, and currently serves as chief education and incentive branch. Major Turner graduated cum laude with a bachelor's in science and public administration's degree from Upper Iowa University in 2008 and received his master's degree from Graceland University in educational leadership and administration. Major Turner is a graduate of the United States Army Command and General Staff College with honors and advanced operations course and the Human Resources Management qualification course. He and his wife Joyce reside in Des Moines, Iowa, and remain active in a variety of church and civic activities together. Please help me welcome Major Philip Turner.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to share some notes with you and reflections on Veterans Day. It's one of my favorite holidays. It gives me a chance to grab a free meal, of course, at Applebee's. Everybody knows about that. It's the best deal going. It's better than a free meal at the mess hall, of course. And Chad, you got me on timer, right? Because he knows I ramble. I've got just a few notes I want to share with you about how I've reflected over the years on Veterans Day. But I can tell that my slideshow really doesn't, or not my slideshow, but my notes really don't compare with some of the things I see in the memorial wall out here regarding Upper Iowa's contributions during the World War I season. That's pretty impressive. So if you haven't taken a look at that, I would encourage you to do so. Safety briefing first, no statistics. I'm afraid that you'd fall asleep on me already. My desire is to share with you what I've observed over the years about veterans, about what I've gained from my knowledge or from my friendship and mentorship relationships with different veterans throughout the years, what I appreciate that, and then what I hope to give back, of course, and then reminding all of us for the need for continued service in whatever capacity we find ourselves. So the first guy I want to talk to you about is Bob Huffmaster. He was my next door neighbor in Irving, Texas, where I grew up. And I was, you know, as a kid, you don't hear much or know much about Vietnam, but he was a CB in Vietnam, a combat engineer. And Mr. Huffmaster did not have a blade of grass out of place. Do you know those people? Anybody? Right. So he was an old Navy squid. He still emails me to this day to heckle me about, you know, go Army, beat Navy, and sir, with your West Point background, I'm sure that hits home with you. I look forward to roasting the goat, though. It's always a good day. But, you know, he taught me a lot about respect and honoring one's elders. He actually had a lot of tolerance for all of us rowdy school kids. He would get on you about getting into his yard, but the funny thing was, in his backyard, that was free game, okay? And we were always allowed to play back there, and he didn't talk much about his service in Vietnam, but he was always a kind, honorable, and available adult male who was important to all of us. And we knew he'd been in the Navy, so he must have been pretty crazy or pretty special, or one of the two, maybe both. But, you know, he's still going strong today, okay? And when I think of what I aspire to be as I continue to age, I hope to be like Bob someday, you know, and run a crew of youngsters that will respond to appropriate leadership, respond to a call to service, respond to being an honorable young man or woman, because our society needs it. So the biggest thing about Bob was his love of country. You know, It impresses me to this day. And when I go home to Irving, Texas, I make it a point to go see him, okay? And it's very important to me. Some other folks. The guy I'm going to tell you about next is really cool. As I learn more about Korean War history, this gentleman, there are still missions that he went on that are still considered classified, or at least not very well talked about. One of them he told me about, and I didn't believe him for a long time until I did some research, but he was a Navy frogman, okay? His name is Alan Bennett, and he is my brother-in-law's dad. And Mr. Bennett was very unique in that they parachuted a team of Navy frogmen behind enemy lines in the Korean War, and that parachute jump, they dropped them out of the belly of a bomber. That parachute jump was their first and only parachute jump, okay? They didn't go to jump school like probably Colonel Duffy and I did. They dropped them, okay, behind enemy lines. So Mr. Bennett was a professional painter. I worked for him a couple summers, and he taught me that there are actually a variety of colors of white on a popcorn ceiling, and if you think you're gonna make a mistake and cover it with the wrong can of paint, he was ready to correct you. And so I painted a couple of ceilings for him free of charge off the clock because I screwed him up the first time. So Mr. Bennett has always been he's even grown to me in hero status because of his exploits as a Navy frogman in combat in Korea where there is no warm water. And he went and did it. I mean, he proves to me over and over again that, you know, a communist soldier with a machine gun is no match for a Navy frogman with a knife, okay? It's just that simple. So he continues to, we stay in touch. He's a good old man, and we always make time to chew the fat. And he again ribs me about, you know, being in the Army and having low test scores and all this stuff. I should have scored better on the ASVAB or whatever to get in the Navy, but that's water under the bridge, as it were. So, and since he's blown up a few bridges, he would know something about that. The next guy I want to tell you about is Sergeant John Crawford. He was my landlord in Ben Wheeler, Texas. I'd come out of Alaska. My family and I had moved home from Texas because we were freezing to death. My wife is from Iowa. She's, you know, it was even too cold for her, and it was really cold. So, well, let's go to Texas. You know, the Army's going to pay for our move. And so Mr. Crawford had a really nice house trailer that we rented for a season. But then right when I signed in with the Texas National Guard, 36th Infantry Division, we got notified for mobilization and got notified to make preparations to go to Afghanistan. So Mr. Crawford was a supply sergeant in the 101st Airborne Division as an enlisted soldier during Vietnam. And so he had a lot of funny stories. But, you know, supply sergeant, one of their main jobs was to police up the dead after a major battle. And so he had some unique experiences, you know, where he had to count people back in and take them off the helicopter when they were getting ready to, you know, be shipped back home for that final ride. So Mr. Crawford, you know, yeah, he was just a supply sergeant. He wasn't an infantry soldier like me, but he served. And he continued to serve even back then. And as I began to mobilize, he took exceptional care of my family. He took care of my boys. My family, halfway through the deployment, did move back to Iowa because they burn up in Texas, you know. But he continued to serve them in my absence and take care of them. My family wanted for nothing and were safe and secure so that I could go do the nation's business at the time. And I haven't talked to him in about a decade, but he was a phenomenal individual. He was a good landlord, which we all know those are hard to find. He was probably a pretty good supply sergeant, which those can be hard to find, but they're really good when you find them. But Mr. Crawford meant a lot to me because he took care of my family. He showed me the value of serving in that capacity, which you know, I'm still a beneficiary of that today. I can remember my daughter was a teenager at the time, and she detailed his truck for him. And, you know, he was going to pay her like $100. And he paid her, But like Mr. Bennett, he made her redo some things, and that was pretty funny. That was worth more than money could ever buy in my book, of course, dealing with a teenage daughter. So there's a few others. I'm not going to take a whole bunch of time, but I would be remiss. This young lady, Brandy Milliken, she is a combat medic currently serving, and she has 2 bachelor's degrees and 2 other deployments. And I think of her often. She's a former employee of mine in the education office down at Camp Dodge, but currently deployed forward. And Stacy Lampy is a human resources officer down at the VA in Des Moines, and she's deployed 2 times. Joe Elliott is a fellow employee on Camp Dodge. He was a former infantry sergeant first class, E7, and got voluntold like I did back in the day to go to OCS, but he's got 5 deployments under his belt and then decides to go to OCS. So that was a big game changer for him. He had to learn how to be a better follower right out of the chute. He wouldn't mind me telling you that, because now he's an exceptional leader, because he had to revisit some lessons and learn that when you become a lieutenant, it starts all over again. So Colonel Duffy did it the right way. He became lieutenant first time through. So some of us had to recycle. But and I laugh because Chad, if you know Mr. Cook, Chad was one of my instructors in Officer Candidate School. So if you don't like my presentation, you can blame him. The other good war story I have you ever had an assignment by show of hands that you just refused to go do, you didn't want to go do it, and the Army's going to make you do it anyway, or somebody's going to make you do it? Anybody? Or am I the only sucker? Anybody? Okay, so I got sent right on. I knew there was another one. Chad and I both, we took the pill. But so I got sent on recruiting duty back in 1989. And I was a high-speed staff sergeant in the 82nd Airborne Division, the only division in the Army, of course, despite what Dr. Duffy thinks about 25th Tropic Lightning. I'm not sure what that's all about. But I put in 2 brothers, okay, single-parent home. There's no way mom could go to college, or pay for college, rather. And the older brother, Lou, I put him in, and he's currently serving in the Texas National Guard as the Operations Sergeant Major for the 36th Infantry Division, okay? And their mom used to babysit for us and, you know, take care of our kids when we'd be out running around as a young married couple. And Lou is a great friend to this day. So can you name anybody who's still battle buddies with their former recruiter? Probably not, but I can actually claim credit for that. And it's because I was able to sell the Army with integrity, if you will. But equally impressive is his younger brother. His younger brother retired as a Delta Force Sergeant Major team leader. And he's a little bitty guy. He was too small to play East Texas football. Gray was one of these kids who had phenomenal total body strength, but he was a little bitty guy. And have you ever seen anybody climb a rope upside down? This kid could do it as a sophomore in high school. Too small to play football, he played the sousaphone in the Henderson High School band, so that was pretty funny. You see him all wrapped up in this white fiberglass sousaphone, bigger than he was, and then he would have to pretty much run to keep up with the marching band. I've also seen him climb a rope, climb 2 ropes, one in each hand. Have you ever seen that? It's pretty impressive as well. But because of his size, he is the guy that actually went into the hole and pulled out Mr. Hussein by the hair of the head and brought him up top, okay? And that was a very great day because I had a huge part in putting these boys in the Army and enjoying seeing them grow, enjoying seeing them become who they were. And you know, it's just part of that ethic of investing in people. It's what Upper Iowa does for soldiers and other military clients. It's what I do as the education officer for the Guard. It's what our Legion members do for the community, on and on and on. So these people have all invested in me, and I have had limited investments in them, and I get to enjoy the benefits of that to this day. So You know, what old crusty major do you know that has two sergeant majors that are brothers that you can call at a moment's notice and borrow 20 bucks, okay? Or give permission to go on their deer lease down in East Texas and shoot one of them little bitty dog deer. But that's a different story. The other thing I want to highlight for you, some of the significant contributions that folks have made as I learned Iowa history. Anybody here heard of Dr. Mary Edwards Walker? Okay, she's the only female Medal of Honor winner, or recipient, if you will. Nobody wins it. I've been corrected before. Nobody wins the Medal of Honor. They're Medal of Honor recipients. That medal was later rescinded because of bad politics, but Dr. Walker actually did her undergrad at Lenox College over in Hopkinton, Iowa. Anybody familiar with that? Okay, so what's unique about Lenox College, they were actually a competitor school to Upper Iowa, okay? And then like in 1863, 64, the entire male student body joined and went off to the Civil War, all of them, and the school never recovered. They tried a couple of false starts, but it eventually folded up, you know, and ceased to exist as a institution of higher learning. But if we think about that for a moment, what a commitment to the success of a national set of objectives, which they may or may not have personally believed in. Being from Iowa, they probably did believe in them because Iowa was very pro-abolition and anti-slavery, and folks were joining up by the droves to go fight for the Union. But the whole college collapsed after that. They stayed around for a little while, but they never recovered. But Dr. Mary Edwards Walker, Medal of Honor recipient, did her undergrad studies there, which is very odd because not many women were allowed to go to school back then. So this is the 1860s. So how far have we come? A couple of other Medal of Honor winners in Iowa that have an interesting history. When I was a casualty operations officer for the Iowa Guard, we actually rededicated this gentleman's grave, and it was very unique. First Sergeant Leroy Volks, he was a Medal of Honor recipient with, I want to say, the 9th United States Cavalry, okay? He fought in the Indian Wars and was awarded the Medal of Honor for his distinguished gallantry against some of the tribes where they fought way out in the west. But he's buried here in Iowa, and of course we have our own living Iowa recipient of the Medal of Honor, Sal Genta, who is a former Army soldier, earned the Medal of Honor in Afghanistan. He is originally from Cedar Rapids. And of course, Lieutenant General Roger Schultz, who is an Upper Iowa alumnus. He and some others were very supportive of some of us older students' bids to go to Upper Iowa. But he's a graduate of Upper Iowa. General Correll is a graduate of Upper Iowa. Colonel Solzner is a graduate of Upper Iowa, and several others. But General Schultz was a Silver Star recipient in Vietnam. So I'm probably running out of time, but some of the key notes that I just want to reemphasize to you is the fact that the call to service has not gotten any more dim. It's actually louder than it ever has been, because those of us who are either able or willing to serve, we keep going over and over and over, but there aren't many folks who are coming in to fill our ranks. And so it's dwindling down into a 1%. General Orr, the Adjutant General, likes to talk about, you know, hey, we're the 1%, which is not necessarily a good thing. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention the opportunities for service. The call for service doesn't have to be in the military either. It can be serving our fellow men and women in our communities like the Legion, or the Red Cross, or the YMCA, YWCA, etc. And any number of great organizations. So let's see, I've covered those. Were you aware that Iowa had a big part in establishing the first Memorial Day after the Civil War, also known as Decoration Day? That actually happened in Hopkinton as well. That was a part of the whole Lenox College thing. If you like Civil War history, I would challenge you to think about it, because man, the cost, I mean, a whole college class going off, the whole thing. I mean, we have our distinguished folks like Niles Kinnick from, or is it Nile Kinnick from University of Iowa. You know, he went off and fought in the Pacific. We have others. The board out there is full of folks who went to serve from Upper Iowa. But I have a couple of questions for us as a group, as a community. Why should I serve my country and other people? And I'm not going to answer these for you, but these are things I want to leave you with. Why should I serve my country and other people? Okay? And only you can answer that for yourself. Another question, what will happen if no one else serves? You know, what's going to happen? And that's a legitimate call now. It's a legitimate societal issue that we need to address. And because if we don't, we're going to have no presence militarily to be able to, how would you say, enforce the elements of national power, you know, which are diplomacy and information and military power and economic power. Okay, how do we hold our position in the world, so-called, as the leader of the free world? You know, and that can be discussed in a variety of facets. But what's it look like to us? How do we want it to look? How do we, the people, expect it to look? Okay, because I know everybody voted, right? All right, that's good. I did too, and proudly so. Who do I know that has served our country, and what can I do for them? So that's a question that I ask myself on occasions. There are plenty of opportunities to serve in veterans service organizations, and I love to put a plug in for them. I'm actually a member of Post 45 American Legion over in Manchester, Iowa, because they have cheap beer and a good steak fry. But I don't get up to Manchester as much as I used to, so I'm going to have to transfer eventually. But you know, our veteran service organizations, they hold a great position in our communities. Look at all they've done with Boys State, with American Legion Baseball, all this stuff, you know, and the VFW as well, and AMVETS, disabled veterans, disabled American veterans, all kinds. Some closing thoughts I have for you, and then I want to transition to a neat video I found about Private Merle Hay. Anybody heard that name? Merle Hay Road, Merle Hay Mall in Des Moines? Right on. So it's a neat video that I found, and I'll get off the dime and get out, because it looks like I'm the only thing standing between you and lunch. So I don't want to compete. So these are things that I cover with my kids. There are things I've covered with my students. There are things I covered with the Morton brothers. There are things that Chad taught me and modeled for me as a role model, you know, transitioning from a non-commissioned officer to an officer. Do what is right even if it hurts, especially when no one is looking. But that's, for me, you know, that's harder than it may seem. With all the training, I've still got, you know, things that I want to do. I've still got a root of selfishness that I have to constantly address. And, you know, that can be difficult. It can be challenging. Learn about and love our country and its people, even if they don't look like me, sound like me, or worship like me, okay? Because our diversity is a huge source of strength for us, and we don't all have to go to the same church or synagogue or mosque or anything like that. We don't have to all shop at Walmart. I hope not, anyway. I prefer Norby's, thank you. But that's not a corporate endorsement, I hope. But I do prefer Farm and Fleet and Tyson's and all that stuff. But we don't all have to be the same. As a matter of fact, if Colonel Duffy will point out for you that if all the guns are pointed in the same direction, then there are sectors of fire that go uncovered, okay? So what that means is that in order to achieve maximum effectiveness of a given system, you have to have all those bases covered. And that's an area where diversity can be leveraged to the benefit of our communities, to the benefit of our organizations, to the benefit of our families. We had a great multicultural event down at Camp Dodge last Thursday night. There were 250 people that were there, and probably 30 of them looked like I did. And that was good news in more ways than one. But it speaks specifically to the demographics involved with how our state is changing. And we need to not just be at peace with it, we need to maximize it. It's an advantage. It's going to be an economic advantage if we play it right for all of us, not just them, not just us, but for all of us. And that's a big deal when it comes to things like Future Ready Iowa, Home Base Iowa, economic development packages, equality, freedom, nebulous concepts, but it's nice when we have them, right? The call to serve others has never been more important. Please do this now, even if you never join up. Even if you never become a veteran, figure out how to serve because the rewards are priceless. So that's it for my notes. I would like to transition to a video about Merle Hay, okay? It's a song. I found it a couple of days ago, and it's impressive. And thank you. You've been a kind audience.
On a farm in western Iowa, surrounded by fields of corn, in the year of our Lord 1896, Merle D. Hay was born. And he learned at seed time and slaughter, as a boy at his father's right hand. Every blessing they placed on their table was from something that came to its end. He learned in the fields of Iowa what every farm boy knows: a seed must fall and be buried, that a feast for others might grow. He was 20 years when he volunteered to fight in World War I. He left his father and mother to be America's first fallen son. He was shot, he was slashed, he was fallen, but his pistol was still in his hand when his watch, a gift from his mother, stopped at 2:40 a.m. He died on the field of battle, for as every soldier knows, a seed must fall and be buried, that a feast for others might grow. Uncle Sam picked up his body from the field of mud where he fell, and carried it across the Atlantic so his mother might bid him farewell. 10,000 wept at that monument that stands off Lincoln's highway, where those with ears may stop and hear what a soldier is speaking today. Here lies in the west lawn of Glidden what every citizen knows: a seed must fall and be buried, that a feast for others might grow. A seed must fall and be buried, that a feast for others might grow.
Thank you, Major Turner. At this time, we will play the United States military medley hymns. We invite veterans to please stand in honor of your branch when the hymn is played. I now welcome Andrew Wenthy, Mayor of Fayette, and President Duffy to the podium for a special presentation.
Thank you, Billy. I'm excited to be here to represent the city of Fayette today as we present the Fayette Community Partnership Day proclamation. At this time, I would also ask a representative from the American Legion, Post 339, to join us as well. Thank you, Dan. As some of you may know, in addition to the 100th anniversary of the armistice, March 2019 marks the 100th anniversary of the American Legion. In 1919, UIU President Colgrove purchased the first American Legion charter in Fayette County and donated this charter to the community in order to establish American Legion Post 339. This partnership has been a means to assist returning veterans with transitioning to civilian life and university life, along with creating one of the cornerstone service organizations in the community. So I'd like to take this opportunity to recognize the 100-year anniversary of this community partnership, and I'll read the proclamation before presenting it to Dr. Duffy and to Dan on behalf of the Post. Fayette Community Partnership Day Proclamation, American Legion Post 339, and Upper Iowa University 100-year community partnership. Whereas the safety and security of the people of the United States, the state of Iowa, Fayette County, and the city of Fayette is of utmost importance. The protection of our country and all of its freedoms, liberties, natural heritage, and resources is critical. And whereas these safeties and securities require the commitment and sacrifice of an unselfish and professionally trained military, and whereas the military service members and veterans of the Fayette community and Upper Iowa University departed their homes, loved ones, and communities, enduring hardships at their own peril to protect and to preserve our liberties. And whereas the community and citizens of Fayette have benefited from both organizations and the longevity of this community partnership. Now therefore I, Andrew Wenthy, Mayor of Fayette, Iowa, proclaim that the 12th day of November 2018 is Fayette Community Partnership Day in recognition of the longevity and upcoming 100-year anniversary of the American Legion Post 339 and the Upper Iowa University Community Partnership, and do thereby extend all honor and accord due. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Wenthy and President Duffy. I now welcome Chad Cook, Director of Military and Veteran Services, who will lead us in memoriam of Upper Iowa alumni and other university veterans who have passed in the last year. Chad.
In Memoriam 2018, please join me in a moment of silence as we pause to remember Merrill Smith, Class of 48, United States Army. William Moore, Class of 49, United States Army. Gerald Eimers, Class of 1950, United States Army. Dale Rademacher, Class of 50, United States Navy. William Barnholt, Class of 57, United States Army. Peter Greco, Class of 57, United States Army. John Linder, Class of 57, United States Army. John Gutz, Class of 58, United States Army. Garth Huffman, Class of 59, United States Army. Thomas Freevert, class of '68, United States Army. Kenneth Richard, class of '71, United States Air Guard. Augustine Bringa, class of '75, United States Air Force. Richard Anderson, class of '76, United States Army. William Pruitt, class of '76, United States Air Force. William Hazelgrove, class of '78, United States Army. Robert Walker, class of '79, United States Air Force. Ida Letwan Dalhaney, class of '81, United States Army. Wesley Jones, class of '89, United States Navy. Richard Elskamp, class of '91, United States Air Force. Frederick Cruz, class of '91, United States Air Guard. Richard Hyde, class of '97, United States Army. Leo Monall, class of '99, United States Army. Robert Gray, class of 2000, Army National Guard. Henry Britton, class of 2001, United States Navy. And Timothy Klein, class of 2003, United States Army.
Thank you, Chad. Dr. and Mrs. Duffy will now place a wreath to honor all veterans for their service to our country. Taps will be played by Dr. Jeff Budekoffer, Professor of Science. I invite you to please stand.
Oh.
Thank you, Dr. Budekoffer. After the recession of the flags by the American Legion Color Guard, I invite all of you to please stay with us to enjoy a light lunch and the company of each other as we continue to reflect on this day. Please also take a moment to view the World War I display in the lobby outside the ballroom. Thank you for attending.
Right shoulder on. Leo, face. Formation on the group. Forward, arm. To the left. Keep out, hold. Please retire the colors. Now, Leo, face. Forward, on. Caliber Leo, on. Detail, halt. Liam, peace. Detail dismissed.